Yes, and of course today we continue with our commemoration of this date in 2008 following the 2007 post-election violence that the peace accord was signed, and you will remember that was a deal that was brokered by the chair of the Eminent Persons Committee, that was Mrs. Graca Michelle, Benjamin Kappa and Kofi Annan as well, bringing the two main parties at the time, that was PNU and ODM, together. Now that peace accord was made up of 4 components, and the first 3 were almost immediate. It is Agenda 4 we'll be discussing later on Checkpoint. So let's just go through them very quickly to give you a reminder. Now, Agenda 1 was for the immediate action to stop the violence and restore fundamental rights and liberties. Now, Agenda 2 moved very quickly towards immediate measures to address the humanitarian crisis that arose out of the violence in 2007 and to promote healing and reconciliation. Agenda 3, pretty simple, was how to overcome the political crisis. Now, Agenda 4 is what brings us to where we are today. Now, it had a number of issues, and the whole idea of Agenda 4 was to address the long-term issues like constitutional and legal and institutional reforms, land reforms, tackling poverty and inequality, as well as combating regional development imbalances. Remember, this came up as an issue. There was also the issue of tackling unemployment, specifically amongst the youth, and consolidating national cohesion and unity, as well as addressing transparency, accountability, and impunity. Now, there was a number of constitutional commissions that were formed as a result. We will perhaps get some time to get into that. The Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission, that you remember, the Committee of Experts on Constitutional Review. There was the Interim Independent Electoral Commission and the Interim Independent Boundaries Commission. Now, you will remember the Committee of Experts is the one that put together the draft constitution that we have today, that then puts in place a number of commissions for transparency, accountability, and ensuring development imbalances are, put together. Now, the Jubilee administration has largely been at the center of implementing this new constitution, if we can still call it new to some extent. How have they fared in terms of birthing many of the issues that came out of Agenda 4? We'll be discussing those issues in just a moment. Dr. Ekuru Aukot, who was in that committee of experts, will be joining us, as well as Daisy Amdani. Will also have Peter Kariuki from State House, who will be giving you all of those details. But we want to talk about some issues that emerged over this past week right here on KTN Weekend Prime, and many Kenyans questioning the manner in which some of the decisions were made by the presidency. And today we're joined by Kennedy Kihara, who's a Principal Administrative Secretary in the Office of the President. Thanks for joining us today, this Sunday evening. We're very happy to have you. So we will start with the issue of the Tunoi Tribunal, which many Kenyans were not clear as to what the president is now being called is a flip-flopping president. Could you explain to us how this came about, how the decision was made in the beginning, and then the president changing his mind while in Israel?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Yvonne. And what I would want to say is that there was no change of mind. What we are really in need of communicating to Kenyans is the fact that the president operated within the law, that the law stipulates that we have 14 days within which to set a tribunal, and that is what we have done. And what I think Kenyans are concerned about is a leakage of a letter, which was indeed an internal communication between the Office of the Head of Public Service and Chief of Staff, Mr. Joseph Kenyua, and the Chief Justice. That was a communication within offices, and therefore I think what is of importance to Kenyans is that the president respected the constitution and that the tribunal was set up within the stipulated time of 14 days.
But I think what Kenyans are concerned about, even though you call it a leaked document, was that the Chief of Staff, Kenyua, was writing to the Chief Justice, giving reasons why the president would not form the tribunal. And then later he did form the tribunal. That he did it within the 14 days is not in doubt. But Kenyans were worried about this flip-flopping and the president seeming to think that he had discretion within the constitution in this matter, when many feel that the constitution is very clear.
Indeed it is. And I think let's deal with what has come out. I believe it will be very important that we deal with the final product. The final product of this discourse between the Office of the Head of Public Service and the Office of the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya was a tribunal. It was gazetted within a stipulated time. And Yvonne, you are aware that before a decision is done, there is so much processing of that decision, and that there are so many parties that are involved. So if somebody wrote a letter and was of the view that that tribunal was not necessary, indeed that would be just an opinion.
All right, but is it an opinion informed by law? Because the law does not give the president that discretion, and that's what many are concerned about.
Not really. I wouldn't say that it's an opinion founded on law. What I'm saying is that there is consultation among and between government departments, and therefore, if there was a letter, and I would want at this point to seriously stress that when we want to communicate with the media, we issue a press statement. If a letter between me and my deputy, or me and the next door officer, comes out to the media, it has nothing to do with the media. It has nothing indeed to do with the public.
But indeed, this issue had everything to do with the public.
Of course it had, yeah.
Justice Tunoi is facing some serious allegations.
Yes.
And hence, any decision-making process and how that decision is arrived at is something the public would like to know,
Yes.
and whether the Constitution informs the decision-making process.
Yes.
Isn't that something the public has a right to know?
Yes, it has indeed.
All right, let's talk a bit about another issue. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, writing to the Chief of Staff, Kinyua, essentially clearing former Cabinet Secretary Waiguru. Many questioned this. Why was this done to the Chief of Staff of the President and not to the DPP's office? Some say perhaps there was a prior request or a query to that, and saying that the separation of powers indeed barred this from happening. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is an independent commission, but it is then writing to the Chief of Staff of the Executive on this matter.
Yes, I want to reiterate that Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is a Chapter 15 commission. It is independent, and it doesn't take any instructions from anybody. Indeed, nobody can tell them who to investigate, how to investigate, unless you are reporting as a good Kenyan. And if they choose to write to the Head of Public Service, I think the best placed person to answer that would be the Chief Executive of Ethics and Anti-Corruption. But the person they are supposed to advise, and the person they are supposed to write to, which is also another creature of the Constitution, is also the DPP. So if there was that letter, because I haven't seen it myself.
You have not seen this letter?
No, I haven't seen it.
So you are not clear that this letter was written by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, by Halake Wako, who is the CEO of that, to Kinyua. Is it your statement here today on national television that you have not seen this letter?
No, we haven't seen it.
Does that concern you, that working in the office of the President and a letter is written to your boss and you have not seen it?
Why should I? Well, what I can say is that the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is a public office, and in the course of their work, they may want to communicate certain information to the Office of the President.
Why would they, though? Because there's independence of that. It would seem that they were answering. In your view, should the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission be writing to the Chief of Staff, informing them of the clearance of an individual? Is that procedural, constitutional even?
It depends on the issue, because this is a situation where the person in question was a cabinet secretary, and even in a situation where I don't exactly know what the letter said and I haven't seen it myself, I would still think that if the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission wants to communicate with the President of the Republic of Kenya, the front office of the President is the office of the Head of Public Service, who is also Chief of Staff.
All right, just very quickly, because people say that the image of the presidency and how decisions are made has been dented by some of these events we've seen, including the State of the Nation address in March, where the president was giving the names from an EACC list. So that should have been the prerogative of the EACC and not the president. What assurances do you have to Kenyans today that the decision-making process within the presidency follows the law, follows procedure, and that there is respect of the rule of law with the president in this country?
Indeed, Yvonne, that's a very good question, and I think all Kenyans are concerned. And one of the many principles that we follow is that there are laid down structures within government through which decisions are made. One of such institutions is the cabinet. And any significant decision in government is made in the cabinet. And after every cabinet meeting, our office will always communicate to the media about the decisions made. However, the President of the Republic of Kenya is the embodiment of government. He's a symbol of nationhood and even national unity. So when he makes that statement, because again is a requirement of the Constitution under Article 132, that the President will give a State of the Nation address to the people of Kenya at Parliament. Within that principle of Parliament, I think there is a convergence, because he will be addressing Parliament, by extension he will be addressing Kenyans, and even all the other arms of government, including ourselves, will be invited. So when the President wants to entrench his war against corruption and comes up with a list of people who he has been informed
by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission?
I don't know who informed him.
You're not aware of who informed him?
Not really.
So you work in the office of the President, but you were telling us you do not know who informed the President of the list of 175 that he presented to Parliament in March last year?
Yes.
That's your statement. You do not know.
I do not know.
Okay. Let's talk very quickly then about the formation of the tribunal just as we close.
Yes.
Because there's criticism again about who's chairing that commission, Sharad Rao, and that he is not fit to do that.
Yes.
Then we start to get the issue of who's advising the President legally in line with the constitutional requirements.
Yes. Yvonne, let me say this, that the legal advisor to the government is the Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya. And that is an office created by the Constitution to be a member of the cabinet, because AG is also a member of the cabinet, and is a legal advisor to government. And any decision that has any legal ramifications within government is processed first through the AG, and obviously within the office of the President there will be internal consultations. There is a lot of consensus building, a lot of collective responsibility about decisions in government. And in the case of the gentleman you have just mentioned, I am aware that a change has been made, that he is now not going to chair that tribunal, because there were certain informations that hadn't come through, and when they came through there was a change, and another person is now chairing that tribunal. So
Sharad Rao will not be chairing the Tunoi tribunal?
No.
Will he be a member of the tribunal? Because the slot he would ideally fit has been taken up by somebody else.
Let me check. I am not sure exactly whether he is a member of the tribunal, but what I know is that he is not the chair, and that somebody else is the chair.
Can you tell us who?
I think he is Jonathan Havelock.
So retired Justice Jonathan Havelock will chair the Tunoi Tribunal. Is that something you can confirm to us tonight?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Kennedy Kihara, who's the Principal Administrative Secretary in the Office of the President, talking about the decision-making process within the Office of the President, and confirming to us here tonight that Sharad Rao will not be chairing the Tunoi Tribunal, and instead it will be retired Justice Jonathan Havelock. Thank you very much for your time, sir, this evening.